All right, now that I've covered some of the points in part one about peer review, at least the sort of the central description of it, I figured I could make a part two with a little bit more, just I guess my typical ramblings, stream of consciousness kind of crap or whatever you want to call it. Regarding this concept of peer review, one of the things about it, peer review, the reason it works. There's a couple of reasons it works. Is that it utilizes basic human competition. Okay, now and let's just pick a field. Let's say I don't know, some particle physics. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Probably should have picked something I know. All right, let's pick decapod phylogeny. All right, there. That's even better. Decapod phylogeny. Now, in that field, there may be sort of say half a dozen researchers that are really doing the big work in that area. Now, within that group, you're going to find not all of them agree. In fact, it wouldn't be a bit surprising if there were 6 major researchers that there's 6 major ideas about how things should be organized. Now, they generally agree about certain concepts, but big fundamental. They might see one thing as closer related to another group, or they might look at this molecular data over the contradictory morphological data, if such exists, and that sort of thing. So, if one of those researchers publishes a paper that sort of solidifies their point, that's here's a test of it, here's molecular data, morphological data, and paleontological data, all supporting via parsimony my concept. Okay, that's what this person just published. They're sending it out to peer review to somebody who may disagree completely with their concept. Now, obviously, the danger in this is that the person can just, oh yeah, that bullshit again, rejected. Okay, that could happen. Now, scientists are human. There certainly is the possibility of that. The reality is, I think it's rare for the most part, if not completely absent. Simply because somebody that petty or that deceitful, that amount of dishonesty, it would bleed through in other areas in their research and science, and they wouldn't last long in the field. Science is very unforgiving for dishonesty, believe it or not. Despite what the creationists tell you, if you get caught lying in my field, making up data, fudging data, trying to jump the peer review process or subvert it in some way, whether it be negatively reviewing a competitor simply because he's competing with you, you find yourself out of a job really, really quickly. So that's an important and really, really important part of this that's to notice. But the thing is that by having your harshest critics review your data, they are now again, they're going to be objective, but they're also going to get a little bit of satisfaction out of finding out that you didn't carry the 2. It's not going to be that simple. But if they look and they go, "Wow, your stats are wrong. Your numbers don't add up at all. There's a mistake someplace in your reporting here." All of us, you certainly are going to get a little bit of delight out of that. So your critics are going to be a whole lot more likely to look for that kind of thing than maybe your friends are going to be. And if they find that sort of thing, it doesn't reject your idea. It's just wow, shit, I need to redo that. One of my papers that I published had a statistical flaw in it. It had completely innocently, I had basically used one stat and yet reported it in a format compatible with another statistical methodology. It got caught by a great researcher. Caught it. They caught it. I corrected it. I was relieved because, could you imagine what it's like to have a mistake you made out there in the literature for the rest of your life? It's permanent. Once it's there, it's there. There's no taking it back. You can write a correction saying, "Hey, I made a mistake." But what does that say? It looks bad. It's best that it's not out there. Now, all of us make mistakes. Okay, that I don't think there's a scientist in the world that doesn't have something published that's incorrect. You know, I've seen misspellings even make it through. A simple misspelling make it through peer review and into publications. It's just best. The fewer of those that there are, the better off you are, science is, the world is, in my opinion. So having your critics do that is really important. Now, if your critics, if 3 of your harshest critics can't find something wrong with your paper, now you got to understand what's the term, feather in your cap? I don't know. I should probably stop using these kinds of expressions. I suck at them. But the point is that having that, you know, that really, they can't prove you wrong. They can't disprove your concept. There may be something to what you're trying to say. Your perspective may carry some weight. And also it necessarily doesn't mean that your competitors are wrong either. By the way, just sort of, science is weird like that. I mean, there can be conflicting data. It just means that there's something else that's explaining both data sets that hasn't been discovered yet. It's part of the excitement. So anyway, that right there is one thing I wanted to say about peer review, and it's the thing is about it. So peer review is just simply, it's no different than when you're in grade school and you have to write an essay about what I want for Christmas, and they make it hand it back to your friends, and your friends get in a group and you know, go through it and correct it, and you have to rewrite it. My little boy does that exercise now, and that's peer review at its heart. That's exactly what peer review is. But you know, it's a way to it's having your data recrunched. It's having it looked at by somebody who doesn't have an investment necessarily in your work, or if they do, it's a negative investment in your work in the sense that they're competing with you. But it's having somebody who's not, you know, sometimes when you work with numbers so often, you have a pet theory in your head. You have even though you're trying to be objective, you kind of know what you want, or what you're hoping for, in a sense. And we try our best to science, the statistical methodology is designed to remove that element from it. So you're not choosing the data, like creationists always claim that we choose the data we like. It's not the way if the stats are done right, that's not an option. Okay. At least in part. But the point is that by doing it that way, by you're having somebody, another set of eyes looking at your data. You're having somebody look at it, and they can just look and go, this doesn't make any sense. And sometimes they're wrong. But if they don't think it makes sense, then maybe some of your readers aren't going to think it makes sense either. So it forces you to rewrite it in a way that maybe is clearer to somebody. You know, maybe your point wasn't worded well, and now you have to make it better. That's a really important aspect of this peer review process, and it's I don't know, it's great. I mean, and the reality is that it weeds out a lot of garbage. Even if they're brilliantly written, I am very suspicious when I see a book, or like a small booklet or whatever that's published where it's self-published. It's like, because it makes you wonder, why did you go through peer review? And it doesn't mean that work is bad, but it also it's a little bit suspicious. And I've seen that in science. I've seen that in my own field in particular. It's not very common, but it happens. People will sort of go around this process and put something out there. So that's I guess one really important point I wanted to say. One other thing I wanted to get, and this happened to me once, so I don't know if this is widespread or not. But I've had a student accuse me of choosing my own peer review, in a sense, wherein she was writing a paper on why the Earth is young. And I told her, that's great, do that paper, but you have to have peer-reviewed sources. She said, that's not fair because you get to decide what's peer-reviewed or not. Which is like, you have no idea what peer review is then, obviously, because I don't choose that. It's not a choice. Peer review doesn't mean something I like or something that's good or something whatever. It means it's reviewed by a jury of peers. And I think that somehow she made it to her senior year of college without getting that information really is a failure on all of our part, in my opinion. But yeah. So anyway, I guess I'm not gonna ramble. I was gonna go a little bit into Discovery Institute and some of their subversions of the peer review process, but that's really getting into a different topic. So anyway, in my opinion, subversions, to put it that way. I don't want to throw any accusations out there and just have it, whatever. Okay, in my opinion, they subverted the process. So anyway, I'll end this now. So take care, guys.